This is Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from An Expat's Russia, where we answer your questions about what it's like to live, work, and travel in Russia. Hey guys, in this video we're going to touch on a sensitive topic, what our wives think about Russia. Now both of our wives are Russians, but before we get into that, if you enjoy our videos, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel out. Matt, what are some things that maybe are said or they were left unsaid that kind of gives you clues about your wife's attitude towards Russia?
Sure. So my wife on a relatively regular basis will say she does not want to go back to Russia ever. She would love to live in Europe. We live in the United States right now. But it's really kind of hard to get an answer out of her why she doesn't like Russia. And I think your wife has relatively similar opinions. I think the biggest thing actually is something that bothered me to a degree in Russia too, is this idea, the Russians call it khamstva or naglist, right? Like, I don't even know what these two words are in English, but they're
like cheeky.
Really. No, I wouldn't say cheeky. I would say it's like, definitely along the lines of being rude.
Right.
Like naglist, it's just like being terribly rude. Like over the top rude, right? And then khamstva is like pushing people, or not physically, but I don't know exactly how to describe these two words. Russians, let us know in the comments what you think the best words in English are for khamstva and naglist.
I would say like a rude entitlement.
Yeah, that works. I'm fine with that. But it manifests itself in many different ways. You go to the store in Russia, right? And we've talked about this on numerous occasions. The salesperson never wants to help you. Like these types of relationships towards customers, or if you got to do something with government bureaucracy, you've got the same thing. Like no one wants to help you. People are terrible. Another good example I usually give is where we lived in Moscow was quite a nice part of the city near Metro Dynamo. We had a really nice dvor, which is like the yard around the apartment buildings. And people would walk their dogs there and they would just let them, poop all over the place, right in the middle of the sidewalk, all over the grass, on the children's playground. No one would clean it up, despite there being, the bags to pick up dog poop. And it's just this kind of like self-centered look on society where I don't care.
I would say lack of awareness of other people. That's just this kind of, you're walking down the street, you block the sidewalk, and a Russian sees his friend and they start talking and you're trying to get by and they don't move out of the way.
Yeah.
This I don't know, lack of awareness of other people, or it's my wife says the same thing, right? This idea that or this kind of mentality that I was here first, I'm better.
Yeah.
It's almost like subconscious, though.
Yeah.
It's not a conscious thing. It's like subconscious.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the other things that my wife doesn't quite like, and again, my wife is comparing, like over time you earn more, right? So in the US, I'm obviously earning more than I was in Russia, so life is a bit different. But I think if you were able to have the same salary in both places, that Russia would be better. The problem is that that's not so easy. But what she doesn't like is that things are very difficult. Like when you need to do something, it's never straightforward. And that just kind of grinds on you, I think. And just kind of like the in-your-face nature of problems and things. That's what she doesn't like.
Yeah, I would say that, my wife definitely mentioned that on numerous times, where she would say something like, well, if we were in the US, then I could just buy all of this at one store. And I agree with her. But in when you're getting very specific items, then you still have to go to different stores in the US. But the major difference is you can easily jump in your car and do that, right? Whereas in Russia, we also had a car, but because of, again, we're talking about, Moscow, where we where we had a car, lots of traffic, but there are also like lots of different stores. So you want to get, specific groceries at this store, and then you'd have to go to this store. It kind of took a long time to get what you wanted, right?
Right.
It's not that it wasn't available. It's just it took half the day. Whereas in America, it's like, I'll just order it or I'll get it at one store.
Right. Well, the problem with ordering things in Russia, actually, if you need only one thing, it's really easy to order it and have it delivered to you. They'll have a courier deliver it to you for the next day for $5. The thing is when you want numerous things and they don't all have them at these internet stores, then you gotta go and pick them up if you don't want to pay $5 delivery for all of them. Or sometimes if they're big items, they won't deliver it. You have to go and pick it up. And if you got to go to multiple places, they have these, like pickup points for stores. And the other thing is that in Russia, the prices on almost everything, consumer electronics and, items that you're going to buy, they're the same more or less as they are in the United States, but they're a gray market. So like if you want to buy the official MacBook computer, this always bothered my wife. You can go to Media Markt or one of the big electronic stores and buy it, and it's twice the price that it is in the United States. Or you can buy one that's imported from the United States and sold without a warranty for the same price that you get at the United States through one of those internet shops.
Yeah.
And these just like kind of little things are what bothered my wife the most.
Another one that just crossed my mind, having kids in Russia, young kids, getting them dressed to go outside all the time. Obviously this is a climate thing, right? If I was in the same climate in the US, then it'd be
I don't think it's a climate thing. I think it's a space thing. So in the United States, for example, and in Germany where you are, it's much more common to have a whole house. And when you have a whole house, it's much easier for your kids to just go out in the backyard and play. Maybe they're not dressed all the way up, right? They forgot their hat, whatever. They can play and come back in. Or just all about having more space. And then the biggest problem that my wife hated in Russia was that when you live in an apartment, you're never on the first floor. If you are, the first floor is terrible because people are walking by your window all day. And then if you're on the top, most places don't have an elevator. You're like going down the stairs all the time. Or if it's an elevator, it's crappy. And like we had to walk the dog, for example, right? And nobody wanted to ever walk the dog in Russia because you could just let him out the back door and let him run around and come back. You had to get all dressed to take him out. And it's the same with kids, right? Kids want to go outside and play. Until they're a certain age, you got to get all dressed up in the winter to take them outside and sit there while they play. And so
right along the same lines is on a lot of times we would come inside wet clothes from playing in the snow or whatever, and there wasn't a dryer to just kind of throw things in or you washed your clothes and then you had to sit there and hang it up on the clothesline or on the radiators along the wall. You're like, oh, I need to wear this tomorrow. So I mean, it was kind of like mentally you had to prepare everything. But so a lot of the things that my wife doesn't like about Russia is these little inconveniences. They add up over time when you put them together, and it seems like life is much harder in Russia, right? Which overall it is.
It's more interesting, but it's definitely harder.
Yeah, my wife, commented on several of those things. Another thing that she doesn't like is like if you're going to, there's always an opportunity to buy your way through something. I wouldn't say always. I would say, it's common practice to go and try to get your driver's license, and the guy will fail you on purpose several times, gosh. So you have to pay.
When my wife passed her driver's test or tried to pass it, it wasn't a number of times. We'll just offer. It was literally you pay 60,000 rubles and you pass. And my wife literally took the driver's test 6 times. It just drives her nuts to this day, and could not pass. And then she went back to her hometown, and she passed the first try. And they're like, "You're fine. Why didn't you pass? This is your 7th attempt." They're like, "You must have really practiced before this." And she's like, "No. If anything, I practiced less."
that attitude towards like this gatekeeper idea where there's somebody that can always be in your way. She definitely, you know, despises that, where there's not a clear, sometimes there's not a clear, well, or there are clear rules, but there's somebody who is standing there saying, I'll let you through if this and that, you know. And it's like in the US it's typically not like that.
No, I mean, I've never encountered that here. The trade-off, though, in the United States is that the rules are the rules, whereas in Russia, and again, I mean, for something like getting a driver's license, I want the rules to be the rules. Everyone has to pass the test, not just paying them off.
Right.
But in some situations, you know, you want a little bit more flexibility, and sometimes you get that in Russia. So it is a positive in some minor situations, but overall, that's something that's definitely really annoying. I mean, it can be the same at the hospital. You go to the hospital and they're like, well, if you pay 1,500 rubles, we'll see you faster. And you think, oh.
Yeah.
In the US, you just can't do that.
Well, I think that's one of the things that annoys her the most, is that typically you go to a store or you're buying a product or service or wherever, whether it's the hospital, government agency, and the expectation is that, you know, the customer service level is way down here and you pay extra to get good customer service or to get benefits. Whereas in the US, there's like a standard,
right? And
then, you know, everyone's polite, or most people are polite, until you give them a reason not to be polite or something.
Right, and so everybody gets the same. Actually, really funny. I taught English to a big businessman in St. Petersburg for a long time, and one of the things he told me, I never really understood what he meant until a ways after, but he said, Matt, customer service in the United States is terrible. And I said, what do you mean? Because honestly, I think the opposite is, I mean, in Moscow, it's pretty good, but still. And he started saying something along the lines of, well, you can't pay for better service in the United States like you can in Russia. He was just so used to like...
That's interesting.
He was so used to like, you know, if I'm getting bad service, I could just pay more and they'll give me great service.
Right.
Or you go to...
So, I mean...
Or you go to a hotel. You go to a hotel in Russia, for example. He gave this as a specific example. If they don't have the nicest room available, if you pay enough, it will become available. You know, and that's terrible, right? Because somebody loses out on the system, on that type of system.
Right.
But that's, you know, a good example of what it's like in Russia, and that's what obviously annoyed my wife, because if you don't have the means, these types of systems are terrible. For the average citizen, this type of system is terrible.
Yeah, and the argument against that is, you know, when you're participating in that type of system, you're, you know, perpetuating it. So it's never gonna go away. If you're like, for example, one example is you're driving, you know, fast and you get a ticket, or you get pulled over or whatever, and you can, you know, pay something, or just the fact that the fine itself is
minuscule.
I don't know,
500 rubles.
$20?
No, sometimes even less. I got a fine once when I was driving in Russia from one of the cameras. I crossed like one of the lines, or I can't remember, turned from the wrong lane, and it was 500 rubles came in the mail.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
I had a my one and only fine was 1,500 rubles, and if I paid in the next, I think it was 2 months, then it was half of it.
Yeah.
750 rubles.
Right.
And I was like, that's not that much. Like I could have, do I want to get to the place that I want to get to and pay, you know, 700 rubles, or, because that's like, kind of the mentality is people who have money.
Right.
Exactly. People who have money could afford the fine, but a lot of the population in Russia are, you know, on the lower end, and that would be a big amount to them.
Right. So anyway, those are a lot of the reasons why our wives don't like Russia. Not that they would never move back. I mean, Sonia, given the right situation, she would move back, but there are some objective reasons why someone would not like living in Russia. So just some extra information. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. This was Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from an Expat's Russia. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have a question about Russia, let us know in the comments, and we'll answer it in another video.